New Zealand mourns as 49 people are killed in the country's worst mass shooting ever. China's annual political season concludes with the country's premier pledging steady economic growth and deepening reforms. South African youth join the rest of the world to march for action against climate change. Hello and welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. Richard Searle and Todd live in Nairobi. For those of you joining us across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us here tonight. And I have my colleague here, Rama Nyang, who has our business headlines. Rama.
Right, so Richard, here's what's coming up in the course of the hour. China has approved its foreign investment law, which could ease tensions with the United States. We'll have the details. And a court in South Africa has blocked AMCU's widespread mining strike due to a salary dispute in Sibanye-Stillwater. Details on those stories and lots more coming your way in the course of the hour. Now, though, let's start with the latest in current affairs with Richard.
Thank you, Rama. We begin in the bulletin in New Zealand, where police have detained 4 people after mass shootings at 2 mosques in the country that killed at least 49 people. Dozens of others, including young children, are being treated for gunshot wounds. 20 of them are seriously injured. 3 men and 1 woman are in custody. 1 man will appear at the city court on Saturday. Police say they were able to secure explosive devices strapped to vehicles. Meanwhile, world leaders expressed their solidarity and condolences to the victims and their families. New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said many of those affected were likely migrants and called the shooting a terror attack. A gunman published a statement denouncing immigrants and broadcasted it live on social media as he opened fire on worshippers. Owen Poland has more. Let's take a look.
The drama unfolded in downtown Christchurch on Friday afternoon when a gunman wearing military-style clothing entered 2 mosques and started shooting at worshippers in what was soon to become New Zealand's biggest mass murder.
So he was changing his gun, and then he went again inside, and where the people were visible in the road on the street, he just shot all the people, those were inside, outside of the mosque.
Lots of people were sitting in the floor. The gun was around the door. I ran behind the mosque, and I sitting behind the container. I rang to the police.
People running away from the mosques were also shot, and the police say there were many acts of bravery as bystanders rushed to help the wounded.
I want to start by saying that we are currently dealing with an unprecedented situation in New Zealand. It's very grave, it's very serious. We have dealt with an active shooter situation. We have multiple fatalities. At this point, I can't say how many, but it is significant.
The central city, including public buildings and schools, was immediately locked down as armed police patrolled the area and dozens of casualties were rushed to Christchurch Hospital. A shocked Prime Minister described the shooting as an act of terrorism and that the shooter had no place in New Zealand.
This is one of New Zealand's darkest days. Clearly, what has happened here is an extraordinary and unprecedented act of violence.
The shooter wore a helmet camera which live streamed the attack for around 17 minutes. And when he tried to escape in a vehicle, it was run off the road by police, who arrested a 28-year-old man who has been described by unconfirmed sources as a white supremacist who came from Australia, where its Prime Minister was quick to condemn the attack.
And as family members with our New Zealand cousins today, we grieve, we are shocked, we're appalled, we are outraged, and we stand here and condemn absolutely the attack that occurred today by an extremist, right-wing, violent terrorist that has taken the lives, stolen the lives, in a vicious, murderous attack that has claimed so many New Zealanders.
The Bangladeshi cricket team was also in Christchurch at the time, preparing for a test match starting tomorrow. And they got lucky. They were on a bus travelling to one of the mosques when the shooting started, and they were taken elsewhere. However, the test match tomorrow has now been cancelled. 3 other people, including a woman, have also been taken into custody by police. And the national security threat level has been lifted to its highest level as authorities piece together what happened and whether others may be linked to the attack, which the shooter said would prove that even New Zealand wasn't safe. Owen Poland, CGTN, Auckland.
The rampage shocked many. Eyewitnesses described terrifying moments coming face to face with the shooter.
Helmet, and he's given the glasses, and he's a dress of the military, and he's a gun, machine gun of the M16 Plug 1, and it's a seat belt of the another gun, bullet, and he passed. I say, hey, what are you doing? And not talk me. He looking and not talk me. He is starting. He starting shooting, and the people of the changing the shoes and the shooting, and me, I'm running. That's after that he go inside and he go one by one. Everybody's killing.
I think I saw that was the guy, but I cannot remember because it was big tension and fear because my wife and my little 4-year kid was inside. So no news, and.
Has your family come out safely?
Yes, I just got news from a friend that they have contact with my wife and son. They're safe. After that, when police come, they ask us to come outside and come this way. But we stay there for 10-15 minutes. We saw many injured, bullets in arms and bombs and everywhere. One woman was lying there. She was just lying on the road, and I don't know how many people died.
Earlier, we spoke with Aaron Campbell, a city councillor of Christchurch and politician, about how people are coping after the shock of this attack.
Christchurch is a city of about 400,000 people, so relatively, it's a moderate size, but it is New Zealand's second largest city. And we have a very diverse, multicultural society here. We're very proud of that. And we're very welcoming of people from every country and religion and race to Christchurch, to New Zealand. And these mosques, they are a very important part of the community. The Al Noor Mosque is a very popular mosque. It has approximately 500 worshippers there on a Friday. And we are absolutely, as I said, we're absolutely devastated that someone would choose to do this willingly. Approximately 8 years ago, Christchurch was devastated by an earthquake and 185 people died. That was obviously due to a natural disaster. The events today were a conscious decision of an individual or individuals in this case. And it is just reprehensible that someone would choose to do that willingly. And as I said, we are just shocked and saddened. And we stand with the Muslim community because of this. We stand with them because we should and we have to.
The attack in New Zealand has sparked protests in the Muslim world. Dozens of protesters have gathered in Pakistani's port city of Karachi, chanting slogans including "Stop Terrorism" and held up signs condemning the killings in the Bangladeshi capital of Dhaka. A group of men gathered to march against the shooting after Friday prayers. The nation's cricket team narrowly avoided being caught up in the attack, which forced the cancellation of a test match against host New Zealand, and Turkish people also took part in demonstrations in Istanbul protesting violence against Muslims. Well, world leaders expressed solidarity and condolences to the victims and their families. Russian President Vladimir Putin called the attack shocking in its violence and cynicism. U.S. President Donald Trump described it as a horrible massacre. The Prime Minister of Australia, Pakistan, and the United Kingdom, as well as European Council President Donald Tusk, also condemned the attack. China's biggest meeting of the year came to a close this Friday with some key policy decisions on the country's economy and its political direction for the year ahead. At the final meeting of the two sessions, the National People's Congress passed the government's work report and a new foreign investment law. Uche Okoronkwo is in Beijing with the highlights.
China's two sessions has come to a close today, with the National People's Congress passing the government's work report, as well as a key foreign investment law, amongst others. Now, acknowledging that the economy faces some tough changes this year, their work will focus on rolling out tax cuts on a larger scale. It will target a GDP growth of 6 to 6.5%, with a 6.5% increase in government spending and a deficit to GDP ratio of 2.8%. Now, the new foreign investment law will promote fairer competition, equal treatment, and a better business environment for foreign investors. For example, it will address intellectual property theft, the requirement for international firms to partner up with local entities, and unfair subsidies to Chinese companies, forcing foreign firms to hand over their technological secrets. Now, pursuing innovation-driven development, poverty alleviation, pollution and green development, as well as stabilizing its financial system, are some of the key focus areas for this year. Uche Okoronkwo, CGTN, Beijing, China.
Earlier, we spoke to Chief Economist Ken Kachinga on the impact of the policy resolutions of the just concluded China's two sessions on Africa.
I think for Africa, the big thing is looking at China as a very strong trade partner. And China went all out to make sure that this is the image that it projected towards Africa. How did it do this? First of all, it shared its historical, cultural traditions. China has about 56 different ethnic societies which all came together into these two sessions. And at the same time, the same conference, there was talk about technology, 5G technology, artificial intelligence. So in a way, China was trying to show we are both not only the past, but we are also the present and the future. And I think that's what a lot of African countries will really look at moving forward. If you look at technology, for example, 5G is something that China is very passionate about. In fact, in the two sessions, we had a 5G media center where journalists could go and see the future of mobile technology. The world's first AI female news anchor was also on display at these two sessions. We also had augmented reality, glasses that you could wear and you could see the whole conference from a 3D perspective. So this is China really saying that it's the best. It's at the cutting edge of technology, and if African countries want to enjoy the benefits of this technology, then it's very important that they maintain very strong trade relations. So one of the talking points was China needs to make a shift from coal energy to renewable energy.
They've made that commitment.
They've made that commitment. And that's very good news for countries such as Algeria. Algeria is one of the top natural gas producers. A country like Tanzania also is sitting on huge natural gas reserves. So those are countries that will benefit from that policy change, because China not only wants to contribute to economic development, they also want to be part of a clean environment, which is going to be one of their commitments moving forward.
The death toll from Wednesday's building collapse in Nigeria's commercial capital, Lagos, has risen to 20. According to the State Health Commissioner, 45 other survivors survived the horrific ordeal. Several people are receiving treatment in various hospitals as the country mourns. Concern have emerged that other buildings may collapse in the area. Nigeria has been struggling to deal with substandard buildings, some of which have collapsed in the past. The recent building had been earmarked for demolition. All right, you are watching Africa Live on CGTN. We have a lot more news coming your way after the break, including South African youth joined the rest of the world to march for action against climate change. World Health Organization aims to end DRC Ebola outbreak in 6 months.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines.
you've got to get out, go there and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca, among the crowds in Cairo,
who come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
Along the waters of the Nile, along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
Most of the Sorrells products, we call them socks optional. Means that people don't have to wear any socks inside. Most of the products that we're lining is pure cotton fabric.
We need to begin introducing, these briquettes to the people where to make a much bigger difference. We know that the major users, all right, are in densely populated areas, all right, and that's where we want to take this charcoal.
Economic data out of the country. The country's foreign currency reserves.
With a dedicated and diverse team of anchors, CGTN now brings Africa to the palm of your hand.
I'm Penina Karibe in the heart of Nairobi, which is bustling.
From everyday heroes to the continent's most powerful figures, we bring their voices to you.
We haven't changed, and this is something most of us are very excited about.
We bring you news that's changing perspectives.
I'm Ucheo reporting from Nairobi City Center.
News that brings Africa to the world. CGTN. See the difference. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back to South Africa, where thousands of school kids join others from around the world to participate in the school strike for climate change, a youth-led global movement aiming to bring about radical action in tackling climate change. CGTN's Travers Andrews has this report. Let's take a look.
As part of the school strike for climate change's global call to mass protest action, school children here in Cape Town marched directly to the seat of power with a clarion call for action against global climate change. They sang, they danced, they chanted and delivered their message that the next generation of leaders will not sit idly by as climate change begins to destroy cities, villages, oceans and livelihoods.
Global messages for all youth around the world to get together and truly stand up for what we believe in. And what we believe is that it's time for us to take our future back. And that because we're under 18s, we don't have a voice necessarily, so this is our chance. We're coming together to demand that people take action now.
They also demanded transparency on government's plans for an integrated resource plan, which could include coal-powered power stations, a greenhouse gas emitter. But so many kids from so many different communities gathering shows just how broad these concerns run throughout the country, and it's an issue that must enter into the public discourse.
I hope everyone will get a chance and see what this main project is about, and so that we can help the planet, and we must stop climate change.
Cape Town's protest was also joined by others in the country, including one set for the Union Buildings in Pretoria. More than 30 local schools made today's march here to Parliament, and their message is quite clear. They want change, and they want it now.
We want change! We want change! We want change!
And if their voices weren't loud enough, their posters brought their message back into sharp focus. It's the entire planet at stake here.
I just think that the youth deserve a future, and we don't want to be living with the consequences of
what's been done to the earth before and all the climate stuff. Yeah.
I kind of want to represent the youth for today because I believe in that we have a future and that we can make it better if we all try hard and unite as one, and to try and fix the mistakes of the past generations.
For now, though, the protest brings a sense of urgency never before displayed by South African youth on a global issue. And with more and more kids joining the movement, the message will no doubt get much, much louder. Davis Andrews, CGTN, Cape Town.
And now we are joined by CGTN's Angela Coppola in Johannesburg. Angela, South Africa there joining the rest of the world. What kind of action are the students there demanding?
Well, look, Richard, what's happening is, besides that march that happened in Cape Town, there were also marches, as Travis said, in Pretoria at the Union Buildings and also in Durban. And it's the message, and as well as a couple of NGOs, that's non-governmental organizations, that joined in. Those demonstrations were a lot smaller, but the messages were all very clear. Those kids, and not so young, young adults, in fact, all want a similar message, and the messaging is being coordinated around the world. There are around 112 countries that are involved in this protest action today, and probably the most striking message for me was there is no Planet B message that was coming across everywhere. Protesters are calling for action and no more talk. They want the planet to become cool again, as they put it, and that's in reference, of course, to the anticipated temperature increase of around 2.5 degrees expected in the next couple of years. Other catchy posters that came out globally were global warming is so hot right now, which I kind of enjoyed it. And then I'm not sure that dinosaurs thought they had time too. So those messages are coming across. And of course, the top of the pops for me was, of course, denial is not a policy. And that's in reference to a couple of global leaders who are suggesting that climate change isn't really an issue. So those were the key messages. They're global in kind. In South Africa, there was talk about coal, there was talk about Eskom, but essentially the messages are very simple. We don't have much time left, Richard.
All right, picking up on some of the points that you mentioned, major South African centers are reportedly at risk from the effects of climate change. How worrying is the situation, and what action is being taken to mitigate the effects of climate change there?
Well, look, I mean, we all know what happened in Cape Town last year with that huge drought where everybody had to muck in, and there were water rations for several months. People were reducing their consumption by around 60%, we believe. They now know firsthand the effects of climate change in the Cape. In terms of parts in Mpumalanga, which is up north in the center of the country, we have a huge coal belt there. Pollution levels there are at record levels. In fact, the CO2 levels and emissions in Mpumalanga province are the highest in the world, and you have large groups of people living near power stations which are coal powered, as well as near the coal mines. And of course, all the coal and the dust and the pollution there is leading to many diseases and illnesses, as well as changing climates in those environments. So people are learning firsthand what's actually going on, and what's most worrying there is that they believe that not enough is being done. Eskom, for example, has for many years been allowed to get away with operating substandard environmental standards. They've got exemptions from the Department of Environmental Affairs, for example, and it's only recently, in the last couple of months, that Eskom has admitted to this fact, and they plan to do something about it. But the damage basically has been done already, Richard.
Excellent reporting there, Angela Coppola. Thank you for your insights from Johannesburg. Still on environmental matters in Cote d'Ivoire, the Cleanliness, Hygiene and Environmental Safety exhibition has kicked off in the capital, Abidjan. The inaugural event aims to promote sanitation and environmental protection with the participation of stakeholders in the sector. This year's meeting is focused on the theme Environmental Health and Safety in Cote d'Ivoire, and will also champion sustainable development strategies in the country. The organizers of Abidjan Clean Expo 2019 also hope that through this first edition, they will raise awareness on the need to adopt green development models as seen in the Rwandan capital, which was recognized by the United Nations as the cleanest and most ecological city in Africa. The Abidjan Clean Expo is scheduled to end on March the 16th.
All manufacturers must be new types of manufacturers. Yes, their awareness must be sharpened. We must not wait for the government. Today, manufacturers must meet standards that go beyond government standards. A manufacturer must be an eco-citizen and an eco-industrialist. Manufacturers must follow the path of sustainable development. We cannot produce a consumer good for people and then make them sick. It's not responsible for a manufacturer.
Africans will respect a sacred forest, but not a classified forest. Why? Because of beliefs. They tell themselves that they can be cursed when they enter a sacred forest. While in a classified forest, they do not see too much risk, and the law forbids them to do so. How then to integrate this notion of prohibition, life and death into the elementary rules of hygiene? This is the major challenge, and until the notion of hygiene is integrated and well understood in our cultures, we will not have conclusive results.
The Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo is now concentrated in 2 areas and could be stopped by September. According to the World Health Organization, the outbreak has been contained in 11 out of the 28 communities. Here is CGTN's Noah Wakugu with the details.
According to the World Health Organization, the outbreak is the second worst in history. 584 people have been killed in this region beset by violence and poverty. But a rapid international response has so far contained the disease.
One good news is that the disease for the last 7 months has been contained in a geographic area called North Kivu. It hasn't spread to other parts of the country, and it hasn't spread to neighboring countries. I think anybody can agree that this is fact and something that we can say is good news. And the second is not only that it's not spreading, it's actually contracting.
WHO now says the number of cases has halved to 25 per week since January. The virus is now concentrated in 2 regions, Butembo and Katwa. Community distrust and attacks by armed groups are, however, hampering the response.
In January, there were 50 cases per week. Now we have an average of 25 cases per week. So there is a decline of the number of cases per week. Despite the incredibly difficult situation, the outbreak has been contained in 11 out of the 28 communities that have had cases. And we have been able to stop transmission in Beni, Mangina, Komanda, Oicha. Now the Ebola virus is concentrated in Butembo and Katwa.
A study indicates that the worst outbreak, which killed 11,300 people in West Africa between 2013 and 2016, cost an estimated $53 billion. Nonetheless, WHO says it's eager and determined to put an end to the virus in 6 months. The organization will continue helping the government in the DR Congo to build strong health services even after it manages to eradicate Ebola in the region. Noel Makugu, CGTN.
Zimbabwe's President Mnangagwa welcomed the new Chinese ambassador with hopes of continued Sino-Zimbabwe relations for mutual benefit of both nations. Zimbabwe and China have had a long-standing tie and collaborations in various sectors. China has assured Zimbabwe of continued support and promised to intensify trade and economic cooperation. So far, China's support has resulted in the complete expansion of Kariba South Hydropower and Hwanghae Thermal Power Station, as well as the rehabilitation and expansion of the Robert Gabriel Mugabe International Airport. China is Zimbabwe's largest trade partner, mainly trading in tobacco, with hopes of increasing the export basket to include beef, flowers, and fruits. Beyond economy, China is involved in various projects in education, cultural exchange, and food aid.
We have made great achievements on the practical cooperation in the last few years, and we are very confident we will have more successful cooperation in the future. Also, we have very strong political mutual trust. We support each other in bilateral occasions and multilateral occasions.
All right, this is Africa Live on CGTN. Let's now go to Rama Nyang for the latest business headlines. Rama.
Thank you very much, Richard. Here's what's coming up in business. China approves its foreign investment law, which may help to ease tensions with the United States. And a court in South Africa has blocked AMCU's widespread strike over a salary dispute.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Every story starts out like this.
Okay. We'll head up now.
But beyond the rush of the numbers, there's always a more fundamental question. What happened? Who has been affected? When market-moving decisions are made, who's responsible? And why?
Let's get some reaction on ground. Joining us in Johannesburg is Sutra.
Hello, Naro.
This is how full stories begin. See how they end. Only on Global Business.
Business in Africa is at the crossroads, where opportunity meets innovation, where profitable new markets collide with global trends. From the sound of an African bell on a stock market's floor to the shout of the trader in a bustling free market, it's colorful, vibrant, and exotic. CGTN stands at the gateway to Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. From Morocco to South Africa, we talk to the deal makers and actors who fuel its engines of growth. Only on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Let's start in China, where the authorities have passed a new foreign investment law, a move that's seen as an effort to facilitate trade talks with the United States. Now, this new law essentially aims to create a more level playing field between domestic and foreign enterprises. The trade row has seen both China and the United States impose tariffs on billions of dollars of goods since last year. Delegates from the National People's Congress approved the bill with nearly 3,000 votes. The law is expected to come into effect from the 1st of January 2020.
The foreign investment law, which this session has officially approved, is a foundational law which promotes a high level of openness to the outside world in a new era. We need to study deeply, implement thoroughly, and according to a high level of openness to the outside world, promote economic and high-quality development.
Opening up to the world is China's basic policy. It has enabled Chinese people to benefit widely and has benefited the world. Why would we change that? If opening up measures are being spoken of, then of course they will be honored.
Speaking of the US, authorities over there are suing the German car maker Volkswagen, accusing the company of fraud over the diesel emissions scandal. According to the Securities and Exchange Commission, the company misled investors by issuing bonds and securities worth $13 billion without disclosing that they had manipulated the outcome of diesel emission tests. Volkswagen's former CEO, Martin Winterkorn, is also being sued for conspiring to cover up the emission scandal back in 2015. Now, the company in that year admitted to using illegal software to cheat emissions tests in the United States. And that in turn led to the share price cratering by nearly 40% and payments of more than $30 billion in fines, among other penalties. Let's head over to South Africa now. The Labour Court over there has rejected a request by the Association of Mine Workers and Construction Union, better known as AMCU, to hold an industry-wide strike. strike. Now, the union, remember, has been on strike at Sibanye-Stillwater's gold operation since mid-November due to a pay dispute between it and that company. Last month, the mining firm announced plans to cut nearly 6,000 jobs in a restructuring plan. According to data reports, gold production has shrunk by over 22%. Platinum production was up 8.8% in the month of January. More job cuts in South Africa. Standard Bank is planning to cut 1,200 jobs and close some 91 branches. It's all part of efforts to digitize its retail and business banks. Several South African lenders have been trimming down their staff complements to cut costs and adapt to mobile banking. Now, Standard Bank has also announced plans to provide a comprehensive, if you will, exit package that goes beyond the legal requirements. Unemployment in the country, though, currently stands at 27%, and that makes job cuts pretty sensitive in the economy. Lenders in the country also grappling with a stagnant economy as consumers restrain and refrain themselves really from borrowing, and some are struggling with high debt levels too. The majority of branches are expected to shut down by the end of June. Still in South Africa, business leaders from that country and Egypt have met in Joburg to cement relations between the two sides. The South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the Federation of Egyptian Industries also signed a memorandum of understanding. CGTN's Angelo Coppola was there.
The South African and Egyptian business leaders believe the signed agreement and face-to-face meetings is a solid start to the development of a mutually beneficial relationship.
That's what it is about getting people together in one room, because all the time we talk about the governments want to do things together. Now for the first time we've got businesses themselves coming together to look at things that they can do together.
Once we have those more opportunities, I think that as we heard also from the South African side, that they are also preparing visits to Egypt during this year 2019. So this is how it starts, you know, to get the ball rolling. It's been a long time that things have been stagnant. So we are just moving the still water.
The South African Department of Trade and Industry is reigniting its efforts to create business opportunities between the two countries.
We have not been very successful in engaging with Egypt, I think simply because of the challenges that the country has, but now there is a willingness to actually do business with each other. So in the very short term, we've been able to take a business delegation to showcase South Africa's prowess in manufactured products. That happened in December 2018.
Several opportunities exist in Egypt. The country is rebuilding itself with 7 of 20 new cities nearing completion.
We have huge infrastructure mega projects going in Egypt presently, and we would like to see some South African participation, you know. So by having those meetings and having from our counterparts in South Africa, then we can explain to them what we have, and maybe something can come out of it.
The opportunities for Egyptian businesses to get involved in South Africa have not been well marketed. It's something that Saki wants to change.
They've got money to invest here. They tend to look more towards the north, to Europe, when in fact there are opportunities down. So from that point of view, they are significant in respect of North African partners.
This is the first step in a potentially fruitful relationship for business people in South Africa and in Egypt. And hopefully it'll change that trade imbalance as well. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Let's wrap up in East Africa, where France will partner with Kenya to build a new commuter rail line that links the capital, Nairobi, to the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. That project was announced by President Emmanuel Macron following bilateral talks with his host here, President Uhuru Kenyatta. The new line is set to be completed by around 2021, and it's expected to help reduce traffic congestion. Here's Robert Nagila with more.
It's a challenge the city of Nairobi has been grappling with over the last decade. Gridlock traffic. The traffic affects us all, this taxi operator says. Fuel consumption is high and you waste a lot of time in traffic. The government's approach to decongest the city is to introduce a bus rapid transit system and a commuter rail network linking low-income suburbs and the central business district.
Nairobi is a city whose daytime population is now approximating 7 million people. So with residents of about 4 million, that is 3 million people moving in and out of the city every day. So it is necessary for us to make this investment.
That investment is a partnership between Kenya and France to build a modern rail line linking the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport and the city centre, a distance of about 20 kilometers.
Parfaitement rappelé, qui impacte à la fois le quotidien.
The commuter rail system will have a huge impact on Kenyan citizens with regards to air pollution and traffic management. The development of this project is essential. The perspective we have for the project is to help rehabilitate and facilitate transportation to the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport.
The proposed rail link will be built by a consortium of French companies led by Alstom. Already, the Kenyan government has built 10 new commuter stations and has ordered 4 additional commuter trains from Spain. The new line will serve 500,000 passengers daily and is expected to be completed in 2021. Robert Nagila, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
I'll leave you there for the time being. Later on in Global Business, we'll be looking at the latest details from the Ethiopian Airlines incident, the crash of ET302, in which 157 people died on Sunday. What is the latest in the investigation into what happened on that flight? We'll have the latest for you live from Paris at 1800 GMT. See you then. For now, though, back to Richard.
Thank you, Rama. This is Africa Live on CGTN. We have a lot more news coming your way after the break. Here's a look at what's ahead. On World Sleep Day, we look at how poor sleeping patterns affect your overall well-being.
Join us in Global Business. See Africa through our eyes.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Kanater, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
See the difference.
Welcome back. Free Sanitary Pads program in Nigeria is helping to keep hundreds of young girls displaced by Boko Haram insurgency in school. Female Empowerment Initiative, a local non-governmental organization in the capital Abuja, has been distributing sanitary pads to displaced girls for the last 2 years. They want their model replicated across Nigeria. CGTN's Kelechi Mekalam has more.
This is what it takes to keep displaced girls in classrooms and undistracted. Reusable sanitary pads. Most of the girls have fled a decade-long Boko Haram insurgency in the northeast. They now live hundreds of miles away in a displaced people's camp in the outskirts of Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Their families have lost means of livelihood and they cannot afford sanitary pads costing more than $1. Menstrual bleeding is a taboo and considered unclean in most parts of Nigeria. As such, girls experiencing menstrual cycles simply stay out of school, and those who turn up can't concentrate in class.
A lot of people are not even aware. When you tell them that someone does not have a means of taking care of her menstrual period, they're like, it's strange, but this is happening. And then imagine the number of public schools we have around. Go to other less privileged communities. So we need to actually carry on more sensitization advocacy so that we can have more people, more support.
Statistics on the effect of poor management of menstrual hygiene on school attendance and the ability to concentrate in Nigeria is not readily available, but it could likely be higher than the average in sub-Saharan Africa, where at least 1 girl out of 10 drops out of school. The organization says 95% of the girls in the camps would use unhygienic rags cut from discarded clothes in the absence of sanitary pads.
I had to start using rags for my period when my sanitary towel got finished. I use it for 4 days, wash it and then keep it. With this pad, we have no itch.
Creating a conducive environment to keep girls in schools in Nigeria is still a major problem. The country has the highest number of school dropouts in the world. Latest survey conducted by UNICEF and the country's Ministry of Education revealed that 10.5 million children, mostly girls, had dropped out of school. Kelechi Mekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
Now, how many hours of sleep do you get a night? International World Sleep Day, which is the 15th of March, is observed to raise awareness around the importance of meaningful slumber. It is estimated that 50% of the global adult population do not get the required 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep every night, which is detrimental to your health. CGTN's Julie Shire has more.
Sleep is as important to the body as breathing. Adults should be getting at least 8 hours of deep slumber a night to restore bodily functions depleted during the day.
So in the deep sleep phase, it actually shrinks to decrease all the toxins and buildup of products during the day. And then also your growth hormone kicks in. And you need your growth hormone to recover, to repair the muscles, to repair your endothelial lining. So it's very important that you get that growth hormone spurt. And then all your other hormones balance.
Without it, the immune system becomes weaker and more prone to chronic illnesses such as cancer, Alzheimer's, depression, and cardiovascular disease. But at least half of the world's adult population do not get enough shut-eye.
I usually sleep 5 hours. Weekends maybe 6 or back to my 5 hours. And then my shoulders will be a bit tense and I'll be too grumpy, I can say.
In South Africa, at least 40% of adults suffer with insomnia. Fast-paced lifestyles, changing diets, stress, and increased use of electronic devices all contribute to an increase in sleep deprivation.
The biggest problem we have is TV, LED lights, and cell phones and mobile devices. So that light goes into the eye, it says to the pineal gland, do not produce melatonin. And we need melatonin for quality sleep. You have got to switch off all devices so that your brain can start to produce melatonin, and that gives you that slow wave, stage 3, stage 4 sleep, to get you into that deep restorative sleep that flushes out all of those toxins.
Poor quality sleep can make you feel tired, cranky, and unable to focus sometimes. So it's important to know how to get a good night's rest. And places like this one help people improve their sleep patterns.
So they either do the home sleep study or they can come in and do an in-lab sleep study. So the home sleep study can differentiate whether you've got a sleep disorder like sleep apnea, which is very high in the African population, especially the overweight African population with depression, with blood pressure problems, with sugar diabetes. Those are all the side effects of having a chronic sleep disorder.
But millions of South Africans live below the poverty line and cannot afford high-end treatment. Medical experts say basic breathing exercises, gradual changes in eating habits, and more relaxed routine can help people sleep better. Julie Shire, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
All right, time now for a short break, but we've got your sports news coming up. Here's a look at the headlines. Tough draw for the Champions League quarterfinalists as draw is conducted in Neon.
Africa, where champions are made, records are broken, legends are born. We're there for every goal, for every knockout, for every step of the way. Match Point,